There's no Deflategate going on here.
Hey guys, welcome back to The U. I'm Savanna Hamilton. We have so much to talk about this week. The Montreal Carabins were victorious over the weekend, winning the Vanier Cup in Regina against the Saskatchewan Huskies. We'll get into all of that, but first, we have to talk about some shocking news out of Montreal. McGill University is cutting 25 clubs and varsity teams across 15 sports for the 2026-2027 season. That includes men's and women's badminton, track and field, women's rugby, and field hockey, among others. McGill has had a ton of successful athletes. 156 McGill students or grads have competed at the Olympics, and of that number, they produced 34 Olympic medals, 12 of them being of the gold variety. Let's hear from one of the athletes themselves. Justin Mazzella is a sprinter for McGill's track team. Here's what he had to say.
We all found out from the release from the varsity administration, which was, I think it's very striking in this situation how sudden it was, given that there was no warning, especially for a team like track and field to just get on the chopping block without a real fair chance at knowing and even having any kind of appeal or review process before the actual decision. Going to another university is on the top of my list right now. It's important for me to continue track. I want to continue it even after university. So these next few years, whatever I may be studying, they need to have track. And if McGill, if McGill can't offer it anymore, then I will end up transferring, unfortunately.
Joining me to talk more about this decision by McGill is the best in the business, of course, Arash Madani. Welcome back to the studio. But Arash, when you heard this news, what was your initial reaction?
Here we go again. How short-sighted could you be? What do you mean you're getting rid of track and field? Women's rugby? Are you serious? And maybe most unnerving, terrifying of all, Sav, is this the canary in the coal mine? Is this now the excuse, the reason, the catalyst for other universities to begin a thorough review and start doing some of the same? It is wrong. Say nothing of the embarrassment. It is absolutely wrong that McGill is cutting track and field, that they're cutting women's rugby, that they're cutting a number of these sports. Some you kind of understand, some make sense. But track and field and women's rugby especially.
In this country right now?
And the pushback you're getting from the Glenroy Gilberts of the world, from the Bruni Surins of the world, from Andre DeGrasse. They have no shame. They have no serious thought. What they're showing, what they're revealing to their student athletes, to their alumni, to the sports ecosystem in this country is that they're unserious. And that's what's been revealed over the last week. What
bothers me the most, coming from a former youth sports athlete as well, is the fact that I'm looking at the next generation. Obviously this impacts the here and the now. If you're already a student athlete, you're like, I might not have a season next year. It sounds like I don't. But what gets me more so is looking at the high school kids, even the middle school kids that have aspired to play in the next level in Canada. And for me, it's like, okay, is the only option now going to the States? If, in fact, of what you're saying basically is that if other programs follow suit, then you're taking away athletics from the overall landscape of this country. And how many, as I just read, how many athletes go on to play at the national level? I'll say this hits home for me because I have an aunt, Carol Hamilton. She played for Laurentian University. She was part of that dynasty that won all those championships.
In hoops, in
women's basketball.
Sure.
And she was also on the national team. And so we see so many
students. And she wasn't the only one from Laurentian on the national team either, right?
Nope, absolutely not. There's so many incredible athletes in this country that use this league, U Sports, as the trampoline, as the board to kind of elevate them to the national and international levels.
So you played. You're a student athlete. It wasn't easy.
No.
It was difficult. It was hard. There was adversity. It required work. The ask of the athlete, the ask of the student athlete is to go above and beyond. The ask of the student athlete is to find a way. The ask of the student athlete is when you've reached some kind of pitfall, when there's the door, you got to figure out a way to either knock it down or find a solution. But the adults in the room are not being held to the same standard.
Amen.
What is, if the recommendation comes that we need to whack, how many sports was that you just mentioned?
Well, including clubs, I believe it was 25.
When internally do they look in the mirror, just like every student athlete is to, when they struggle on the court, ice, floor, field, whatever, and say, okay, I got to be accountable. I got to get better. I got to find a way. I got to find myself a solution here. Why aren't these universities, why aren't the staff, why isn't the direction being held to the same standard of, okay, what can we now improve, do better from an alumni standpoint, from a philanthropic standpoint, from a business standpoint, from a corporate sponsorship standpoint?
I think you speak on a really great point there, because for me, I also see about the camaraderie and the alumni support. You kind of mentioned it a little bit there. I believe in the States, from my knowledge, from my twin sister, she played NCAA as well. They just have such strong alumni support, donors, people who are in the business world that have gone on to do great things, also coming back to their alma mater. And I just feel like in Canada, there's certain programs, certain schools that don't have even a quarter of that support.
But you can have vocal alumni. Like that same McGill University was teetering a little while back, wondering whether or not football should continue, and then the alumni stepped up. Look, the change.org page already has, over 6,000 signatures. It's not just that the alumni can save the program. The alumni need to now go to university administration and say enough is enough. And this is not just a McGill thing.
Yeah.
Like this is like I mentioned at the beginning, this is going to start across the board now. And this is where, if you are an alumnus of a Canadian university institution, if you played sports and this matters to you and you want your university to continue performing at a high level and being an elite level institution, a U Sports school, step up.
Yeah.
Make your voice heard. Gather people around. Get people engaged. Start now before the message is it's too late, it's over, we're cutting. I can foresee a scenario in which the track and field gets walked back. I can, at McGill. But my point here is there are a lot of schools quietly who may be doing some of these same reviews right now. At a time where dollars coming into institutions are less, at a time where finances are tight across the board at a university. So if you're a proud alumnus of football, basketball, hockey, track, lacrosse, rugby, you name it, soccer, make sure you and your crew are chatting right now, because something's brewing, and it's not just at McGill.
A final point that I will make to this is the fact that in a time in Canada where we're seeing the growth of women's sports at the professional level, between the rugby women's team silver medaling at the Worlds, between
at the Olympics,
and then also the PWHL expanding across Canada. They just got a new team in Vancouver. Okay, we got the Toronto Tempo coming in 2026. These are all the highest levels, but there has to be a level just below that people can aspire to, getting to that next step. You don't go from high school straight to like the WNBA here.
Of course.
And so what gets me was the fact that it was reported that more than 100 student athletes combined across 3 main programs, being track and field, women's rugby, and women's field hockey. Now, the numbers are kind of still yet to be revealed, coincidentally enough, but it's assumed that over 100 female athletes will be impacted by this. And I just personally find it, as a woman who also was a student athlete herself, that this is devastating. This is a step back, especially when women have come so far to fight for rights and equality in sports specifically. We know that Title IX, Canada got CC'd on that email. And so that's why I feel like when you're cutting all the programs back, but specifically you're impacting a lot of women's programs, that's where my heart goes out to the athletes. That's where I get frustrated and furious, quite frankly, over the institutions that, to your point, cannot seem to find a solution. This should be not even the last resort. This shouldn't even be on the table ever to be considered. Athletics is usually the heart and soul of a school. You know, that's what all the students, their peers, rally around. They come out to their games. It's a community environment. It gives people to champion something beyond academics. Academics is great, but you can't yell in a gym and scream and, you know, talk some smack to another team in a safe space other than sport.
You said something interesting there, Sav. You talked about how these schools haven't found a way. My bigger issue is they haven't even tried. They're going to pretend. They're going to say. They're going to have messaging. When you start going to third parties coming in for reviews and bringing in, what did you do in the lead up to that? What as an organization, what as an athletic department did you do differently? What did you try? What did you experiment with? You're saying, okay, our financial model isn't working right now. Let's find a different way. Let's find different paths, plural. Did those even happen? My presumption? Nah.
Are you ready to talk about some more celebratory news?
Let's do it.
Okay, let's talk about the Vanier Cup. Great call on the broadcast, by the way. I enjoyed every minute of it. You were there. You were in Regina for the 60th Cup. The Carabins, they beat the Huskies 30-16. Now, when we talk about the overall conversation about the powerhouse teams in Canada, we know that in Quebec, Laval, that's the team that everyone talks about. But where does this now put Montreal, seeing that this is their second Vanier Cup title in 3 years?
They're right there. They are right there. Laval had a head start on them. You know, Montreal entered the equation in 2002. Laval started a few years prior. They won their first one in 99. And now this is the third one in Carabin school history. Montreal not only beat Laval, Sav, but they went into Quebec City and beat them for the RSEQ championship to win the Jacques Dussault Cup. And we talked about this a few weeks ago. It feels like the Carabins are just getting started with a freshman quarterback named Pepe Gonzalez. So there are a lot of people around Quebec football who said, okay, this is kind of a reset year for Montreal. They just lost Jonathan Senecal, the National Player of the Year. It's going to take them a minute to walk before they run. With their defense, with this hotshot quarterback, not only did they win, but that defense did not allow a second half touchdown in the win over Saskatchewan.
That's incredible. And I'm happy that you talked about Pepe Gonzalez because he is the man of the hour. Come on. Like that hug with his parents and the way that he played the game as well. You know, when you think about the fact that he has had one of the greatest rookie U Sports freshman seasons that we've ever seen in this country, what are your takeaways from his performance throughout the year?
How he took over a locker room, how he basically became the man in that locker room as a freshman. He and a senior were basically vying for the starter's job, and Pepe won it week 2 and didn't look back. The fact that in his first game against Laval, he struggled when they went up to Quebec City. After a 4-interception performance, he just shrugged it off. The evolution throughout the season to get this team to where it needed to be, and the fearlessness of Pepe Gonzalez. This dude is cold-blooded. And Savvy goes into the national championship game in Saskatchewan, filled with green, and he did not blink. The deep ball attacked the corners, went for it, and there were 2 throws. One to Brandon Gourgon, who just absolutely, fully stretched out to catch that touchdown pass. And then to Hassan Dosso later on in that game. Those are just baller throws you expect from a senior, not a freshman. This kid did not look like a rookie. He did not play like a rookie, and he didn't carry himself like a rookie, which is why he won over his locker room and why he was MVP of the Vanier Cup.
And it's just the beginning for him. Like, that's, if you're the rest of U Sports, you're scared. Like, come on now. This guy is incredible, especially with the transfer rule coming in. Think about that next season. I was thinking about that for a second. I'm trying to recruit this guy.
How many student athletes at McGill are looking down the street being like, maybe I'll go there?
Facts. Literally. Exactly. So, no, shout out to Pepe for such a great season. But let's talk about the defense that we saw from Montreal. That was pretty remarkable in and of itself. You know that defense has been their identity all season long. They made a brand out of it. I like to say that defense doesn't just win games, it wins championships, as we saw with the Vanier Cup. Could you tell me how Montreal played to their brand identity, especially in the second half?
Whew. I mean, Sav, it was just physicality. It was athleticism. They were flying all over the place. There was a play in the second half, later on in the game, where Riker Frank, the fifth-year senior for the Huskies, gets the ball in his hands and gets blown up by Mohamed El Shal. And I was standing behind the Carabin sideline when that happened, and that entire bench and sideline just erupted. This is their identity. This is their DNA. This is what they do. They get after the quarterback. They hit hard. They are vets. They are ball hawks. You look around, they got the kind of arm flap going when they make a defensive play in the secondary with the interception. Louis-Philippe Gauthier just has had a playoffs for the ages. Had one interception all regular season, then a pick against Laval, a pick against St. Mary's, and an interception to boot in the national championship game. They're all about takeaways, and they're all about taking away the soul of an offense. And that's exactly what that Carabin defense did, especially in the fourth quarter. It was a one-score game for most of that fourth quarter, and that defense just shut the door.
All right, Arash, I know that they didn't win the Vanier Cup, but they still had a remarkable season. We got to show the Huskies some love because they were the best in Canada West. And I rhymed on purpose. Yes, I did. Can you tell me about what you saw from their season?
I mean, they're right there. They are right there on the cusp of a national championship, but what a run.
Yep.
First of all, their goal was to host the Hardy Cup and win it at home. Check mark. They win the Canada West title. Then they get a bowl game up there at Griffith Stadium, and they beat Queens. Check mark. Mission accomplished. And then they get to the Vanier Cup, and they're fighting tooth and nail. It was a one-score game at the half. It was a one-score game in the fourth quarter. I found the Huskies just kind of wore down a little bit at the end. Montreal kind of imposed their will in the fourth quarter. And you just wonder a little bit. And look, this is sport. If ands and buts were candies and nuts, what a Merry Christmas it would be. What if their starting quarterback was ready to rock? What if Daniel Weeb, their terrific receiver, wasn't in a walking boot throughout practice for 3 weeks and was just able to play barely in games? What if their decorated running back wasn't on a pitch count through practices, load managed because he's just used so often? What if the Huskies were all systems go? What a year, what a team, what a leadership group when you lose your quarterback after week 5, when you find out in the postseason that he's been diagnosed with T-cell lymphoma and a rare immune system disorder known as HLH, and rally around him. Congratulations to the Huskies for reaching the Vanier Cup. Congratulations to the Huskies for winning a conference title, for winning a national bowl game. Montreal had the better roster, and they played better. Somebody's got to win. And the Carabin earned it, and they deserved it. But it was a great season over there at the University of Saskatchewan.
I want to look ahead because there has been some changes here. After 8 years of competing in the AUS, Bishops is moving back to the RSEQ conference. Can you tell me what went into that decision?
So I'm going to preface this. I'm a Bishops alum.
Okay.
Not happy with this. This is not good. Bishops showed they were uncompetitive in the RSEQ. Bishops is a small university. They belong in the AUS. They were competitive in that conference. It helped the AUS conference that had been 4 schools, and you have 5. It was an opportunity for student athletes to do things they'd never done before, literally in their lives. Sav, I met a kid from Bishops in the early days of this AUS Bishops partnership who literally had never been on a plane before until he showed up to go to Atlantic Canada to suit up for the Gators. My understanding, knowledge of this is that this was directed by the AUS presidents, principals, etc., not the coaches, not the athletic directors. This was a cost decision based on having to get from Atlantic Canada to Quebec and vice versa. My concern with this is Bishops now returns to Quebec, small school, small budget, no chance, not even a small chance, no chance of competing with Laval and Montreal.
I was just going to say the football program.
So now what? Now what? And my worry, my concern, my fear is that the next group of genius consultants who are going to come in for review and recommendations are going to come in and say, football is unsustainable at a school with such a rich football history. And that's my worry. That's my concern as an alumnus and somebody who follows and enjoys university football in this country.
Because Bishops did have a pretty dominant program there once upon a time.
Mm-hmm.
So
now what?
Now what? That's crazy. I mean, there's so much changes happening right now. I just hope for the best for that conference, especially out in Quebec and AUS. Like, you know, it impacts way more than just, you know, one singular team. You got to look at the overall league and the conferences. And at the end of the day, for me, it's all about fairness. Does this decision make it more or less fair for any one singular program or the entire conference of programs? And if the answer is no, then you really got to reevaluate that.
I got one challenge for every university conference official when they put a press release together in a statement. I dare them to try to not use collaborative process and collaboration in their statement, because that's all the last couple of weeks have been through all of this is just a whole bunch of word salad. I'm tired of your collaboration. I'm tired of your collaborative process. Let's get to better results. Let's get to better end results for the student athletes.
All right, Arash, show and tell.
Yeah.
I brought
a prop.
An unused Vanier Cup ball. Can you tell me why it was unused and why you brought it in?
Well, first of all, there it is.
Pretty
There's
sick.
The logo.
That's actually sick.
So Wilson's the official football of U Sports and the CFL and basically football across North America. Sav, I want to pass this over to you.
Go on.
Look at the stripes now and touch the stripes. Forever they were painted on.
Oh, yeah. This is like stitched on now. Yeah.
So two of the conferences this season, Atlantic Canada,
good.
It does.
Fresh leather.
Fresh out of the box.
Yeah.
There's no Deflategate going on here. The AUS and OUA used the new football that's stitched. Quebec and Canada West didn't. So for the Vanier, they used the old footballs. Each team had 6 footballs that had the painted on stripes. Mm-hmm. At Vanier, all the coaches across the country gather. They have their CUFCA meetings, Canadian University Football Coaches Association meetings. They're deciding whether or not, because Wilson's now just making footballs like these. There's no more fully painted stripes. What are they going to do? What's the CFL going to do? What are they going to do moving forward? We may be moving towards all conferences now having the stitched stripes on the footballs.
Is there a benefit to that per se? It just looks cool.
It's going to be different for the quarterbacks because, look, when you hold the football, suddenly, depending on how you hold it, your thumb, your index finger is not painted, stitched. But this is the way Wilson's just going to be making footballs moving forward. They're no longer going to paint it. So it's just going to be a matter of what our teams and leagues going to do. And that was a big part of the conversation going on in the meetings. 2 of the conferences have moved on to these footballs. Not all. We'll see what happens for next season.
Absolutely. It reminds me of the FIBA basketball versus like the NBA or WNBA basketball. The difference is there.
Totally.
Yeah.
And back in the day, the smaller basketball and women's hoops as opposed to the bigger one in men's basketball. They moved away from that. But there used to be two distinctly different basketballs.
It's still a little smaller, I believe. The women's basketball is just a little smaller, but still. But anyways, well, thank you so much for bringing that in. That's so fun. And also sharing your insights on the Vanier Cup as well as McGill's, tough decisions here. But thank you very much for coming in.
Yeah, awesome season on the USAF. Great to see you.
Appreciate it. Listen, I have had so much fun getting back to my roots, covering U Sports with the U, and seeing that this is our final episode of the fall season. It got me thinking about all the moments that have made me smile. So here are my top 3 shining moments. Let's run it right back to the snowstorm that came down on the men and women's soccer championships at U of T and McMaster. The women's team, they made the most out of the weather, and it showed. They really thought, when the snow comes down, why not embrace it? Watching this made me feel like a kid hearing that there's a snow day. So much fun. The women's rugby finals were unforgettable this year. A few weeks back, we had a nail-biting finish when the UBC Thunderbirds secured the national title in the final minute of the game. The score was 13-10 for UVic when UBC's Adia Pai sprinted over the line just before the final whistle to get 5 points and the win to the championship title. What a play for the Thunderbirds. And I know we're still fresh off the weekend, but we've got to highlight this super sweet moment of Montreal's quarterback, Pepe Gonzalez, spotting his parents after the Vanier Cup win, sprinting over and leaping up to embrace them. It's those types of moments that move me. That wraps up our very first season of the U. I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did, and shout out to our incredible producers behind the scenes, all women, might I add, as well as our fantastic guests for all their insights for this program. The U will be returning back in 2026. And until then, you know the drill. I'm Savanna Hamilton. Be great.